Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight we're speaking with Joseph Sweeney in conjunction with his Cerulean Collective Exhibition, which is on through December 8th. Hello, Joe.
Hi, how you doing?
Thanks for being here tonight.
Okay.
So I'm gonna spotlight Tina's video here. So please tell us a bit about yourself and the new show.
Okay. Well, I've been painting since officially since 1980, and we're going through pieces here that were most of the smaller ones were done on location because I like to be on the spot using the actual color that I see on the day that I'm working. So that's important to me, like trying to get to the truth of the painting. Some of the other ones, like this one here, was done in the studio from one of the smaller paintings. Um, but I had to go, if you're going large like that, sometimes a little difficult to put that on the canvas, especially if the wind starts to come up. So you have to kind of consider that ahead of time.
So
This
what
little
is
one
it
here.
about plein air? What is it about plein air painting that attracts you?
Well, it's that what I was saying before about getting the true color of being on that location. You're not, if you take a photograph of that, that photograph is going to change the color automatically. It always happens. You can even do it with your phone. If you take a picture with your phone and hold it up to the image that's out in front of you, you'll see that there are different colors going on in there. The color of the blue in the sky, the color of the clouds, it's going to be a little bit different. So the idea is to take the actual color, like this painting here in Bermuda. I stood there for about 2 hours trying to get the right color in the water because it goes from a kind of a blue to a kind of a green and then into the shallows it changes. So to me, it's kind of important to get the truth of that situation and try to get as close as you can to the actual landscape that you're working with because some of my origins came from I was a navigator in the Navy, and you had to be correct when you were looking at something through binoculars or on the chart so that you didn't go aground or so you didn't hit something. So it was important to be accurate. So in this case here, I'm in the morning, the sun has just come up behind me, and I'm looking at the lighthouse down at Cape May because I like to paint down there. It's wide open. People tend to leave you alone, and you can be out there working all day if you want. The one with the sailboat is a scene that I saw before, where the boat is was built at the Independence Seaport Museum. John Brady is the guy standing up in the boat there. He was the president at the time, and they were testing the sails on a whaleboat that was used back in the day for a whaling, and it actually worked. They sailed around, and I like the idea of the boat being out with the sun going down behind me and the moon coming up, or moon setting on the other side, I think it was. What were we going? No, reverse. Moon coming up, sun setting. We're facing east on this one. This next one is done. That one was a smaller one. What I that I was doing, the one with the lifeguard at Cape May. Cape May's lifeguards have red and white um, lifeguard stands. They're the only ones on Jersey Shore that do that. So you can always tell where you are. And this was one of those days where people were in the water and all of a sudden clouds get a little darker and the guards are whistling people in from the water because it looks like a thunderstorm is coming up in the distance. So
So just
one of
some
the
of these
reasons
are oil, some are
the
acrylic,
larger ones
some
are oil. This little one here is open acrylic. It's a slow drying acrylic, and it makes it easier to work with the acrylic. It stays wet for about 2 hours, so you can blend the sky, and you can basically. I defy anybody to tell which one is acrylic and which one is oil. So it lets you blend a lot easier than it would be with old school acrylic. Old school acrylic tends to dry up like instantly. This one, with the sky, I could blend that blue down, and then I could also work the water change the color in there, change the beach, work on that color while it's still wet. And then in about, depending on thickness, 2 or 3 hours later, it'll be dry. And if I had to, like some of the other paintings on the other side of the gallery, if I have to jump on the plane in Ireland, you don't have to wait for anything to dry there. It's already ready to go. If you're not waiting for oil to dry for 2, 3 days.
So
Um,
Ireland is your ancestral home.
it is. We're from Donegal, and we can trace back to around the 800s. So and it's not me. I mean, I wasn't doing the tracing. The books are written, so you can go back and check on who owned what territory at what time and who they were working for. So this picture here, I returned to Newport, Rhode Island to paint that one because in the Navy in the 69 to 71, I was on a destroyer escort out of Newport, which was actually behind the hill where the lighthouse is. And there's a Newport Bridge. If you look into the left, we were on the top end of the harbor where we were stationed, and we'd come every day that we were going to sea. We passed this little lighthouse, which is called Castle Hill. And it is, there is behind it now a hotel, but it was a private residence. And the owner gave the Coast Guard permission to build the lighthouse there. And I think he charged them $1, but he wanted the back part of the lighthouse blocked so it wouldn't come into his bedroom window. But anyway, this one's a little open acrylic. And the one below it is, we're in Cape May again. And it happened to be one of those rainy days while I was teaching a class, and people were saying, well, what do we use for color for this? How do we do this? So I kind of went through the whole process, and the birds were kind of sitting on the beach like they do in the rain. They didn't want to fly around, so they were included.
So do you prefer to be outdoors as opposed to the studio?
Yeah, if I had my choice, every day would be outside painting, just because of the light situation. You know, if you're painting outdoors in sunlight, you can be behind a building and getting blue light, northern light. The colors are more pure. You can mix the color that you see out there in the landscape and get more, again, more accurate, more truthful to what you're looking at.
But
This
then you
one here
also
was
have to
done.
play you have to play beat the clock too, right?
You
Because
do. You
it
can't, there's
keeps
no
changing.
dawdling. Yeah. When people start taking my class, I tell them that plein air painting is the Navy SEALs of art. You have to be ready for anything at any time. It could be wind, it could be rain, it could be hot sun, it could be bugs, it could be anything and everything because you're out in the environment. So with a painting like this, which is 4 by 5 feet, this was also done from a little sketch where we were painting all day and it was drizzly and cloudy. And just as the class starts to end, then the sun comes out. And so you get this nice color, but, it was time to go home. So I got it as fast as I could on the small one and then went back and did the larger one. Same thing with the other two here, the sunsets. With the sunset, you're dealing with, again, all of the other things, plus the sun dropping below the horizon and things starting to get darker. So you need to be able to get to a point where you can move quickly. Now, when students are taking class, I don't force them to speed paint. I tell them to learn everything slowly and get good at it before you go out there and try to catch a sunset within 15 minutes or so. That's tricky. So you can photograph it and you can bring that home. But again, like I said, the color is always a dodgy situation to see what they include in the photograph. Like in the old days, it was Kodachrome or Kodak film. And the reason they called it Kodacolor was because it's what Kodak thought you wanted. So it would make certain things darker, certain things lighter, but it wasn't the color that you had on the location at the spot. So let's see, what else? What else can we get
So I
into
guess
here?
when you're painting outside, you probably end up meeting a lot of people, right?
Well,
Like,
depends.
just-
If you set up covertly, people can not see you behind a bush or something, or don't pay attention. And then other times, say like in this situation here, we were at Andalusia, which is the old Biddle estate, and people are touring the estate, and they'll come by, take a look at what you're doing. And I always try to be fairly polite, but I do keep working. I don't stop and gab while the sun is moving across the sky. But this was up on the Delaware. It's just past the city line of Philadelphia. So you're actually in the country there. And the little building on the right is called the Pool House. And it's not because there's a pool in it, it's because there's a billiard table upstairs. And so they go to play pool in the pool house.
So were you always a landscape painter? Or did you evolve into it?
I started at PCA, which is no longer there, um, as a just trying to figure out what to do or how to paint. So we were doing still lives, figures, went through the whole 9 yards of art school. And then one of the teachers who taught there, David Fertig, said, well, why don't we try painting outside? Because I was saying this indoor stuff is not thrilling me. Plus, at the time, the studio was small and everybody was using pure gum spirits of turpentine, and I would tend to get a headache inside. So I said I wanted to get outside and see. He took me up to the art museum and we painted up there. Sidney Goodman, I went up with Sidney Goodman a couple times to paint there, if people know who he is, and worked my way along the boathouses, which I knew from being pushed in a coach along the boathouses because a lot of my uncles worked in the boathouses or rode out of the boathouses, or we lived in Fairmount section. So we could just come right across the street along the boathouses. So that became a good spot to start. So I would set up between the buildings and paint there to get outside.
So you grew up in Philadelphia?
We was born, let's see, how do we do this? My great grandfather came over in 1880 from Ireland, and then he worked at the Navy Yard after a few years. And then my grandfather worked at the Navy Yard as a carpenter on and off, different times. My father worked at the Navy Yard for 40 years. And my first job outside of high school the next day was working in the Navy Yard. So we were building boats all the time, or had a hand in it somehow. This painting here goes back to the 1300s, which I didn't know about till I went over to Ireland. Uh, and there was a piece in one of the histories that said Ian McSweeney, or what they call him, McSevney, was the way, McSevna is the pronunciation in Gaelic, um, came from Scotland to Ireland with his godfather to cut wood for the building of boats. So we have been doing this job, not I don't think continuously, since the 1300s. So I thought, well, what would it look like if they were building boats over there at that time? And because they were living in Scotland at the time, they moved from Ireland to Scotland and back again, but they were in Scotland at the time, and they were in the Hebrides, which was controlled by Norsemen, Vikings. And so they learned from them how to build boats this way. So they were going back to Ireland to get fresh wood so that they could take it back and do some building, boat building. And that's our history lesson for today. But is there anything else? These paintings here, these two, one above the other, if you turn to the right a little bit, Tina, to the right. There you go. A little more. Okay, so those two were done in Ireland on location, and so was that other one there. So that three that we're looking at now. were done on our last trip. I think it was 2023. Um, was These were done on the spot.
Do you
Um,
take students there?
yes, we were over there with about 8 students painting uh, along the what's what's called the Inish Owens Peninsula, which is in Donegal, but it's like broken apart from the main section of Donegal, and it goes up to the north. And the one place, the second piece down, or the one in the middle at bottom, is a view from Fort Dunree, which is like a place where tourists can go see the old fort, and then it's facing a lighthouse at the top end of Ireland. That's Fened Lighthouse, so it's way out on the point there. Um, so
So
we
where's your favorite place to paint?
just along the shore, like where there is land and water, because I spent 2 years in the North Atlantic, and just water around is not very interesting. It's just especially the North Atlantic. It's gray up top, it's gray down bottom, dark gray, light gray, and it's just a line in the middle. So there's not a whole lot going on there, unless you're in a hurricane, and then there's all kinds of things going on. But you can't do much in a storm. So this is most of this work here is done along the coast, because I'd rather be at that location, any location along the coast. I've done it in Key West, Bermuda, California, Ireland, wherever I can get land and water. Any questions?
It's a great
Okay.
show, Joe.
Okay. Well, I hope people come in and take something home.
The show's up through December 8th, and yeah, we hope people come down to see it. Everything's also available on our website, ceruleanarts.com. And thanks again for being here.
You're welcome.
Have a great night.
You too. See you later.